These are the directions for part 4 of your alternate assessment assignment. In part 4, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be developing an assessment plan for a student with significant cognitive disability who requires alternate assessment. What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to identify the objectives for assessment, develop the instructional activities, identify supports, adaptations, and assistive technology, and develop a data collection plan. Now that sounds like a lot, but I'm going to walk you through it step by step. The first thing we look at is developing the objectives. Now you see that this is off of the math part of the alternate assessment. That's the example that they give in the teacher resource guide, and this is actually the example from the teacher resource guide. But we're going to use that as a template. So what it actually looks like is this, where you identify your MECF objectives for assessment. You get that out of the clarification guide. You develop the instructional activities, you identify the supports, and then you develop a data collection plan. So that's what your plan is going to look like. To be able to demonstrate to me that you've done all the accommodations and support, you also are going to have to prepare this chart. This is not part of the paperwork that the State Department requires. This is for me. So what you're having to do is you're having to include at least one setting accommodation, one timing accommodation, 2 presentation accommodations, 2 response accommodations somewhere in your 6 objectives. In the supports, you have to include at least 3 supports within reading and 2 within writing. And in the supports, adaptation, assistive technology, you may include direct or indirect prompts. And again, I'm going to walk you through all of this. So here's what we have. This is off of the clarification guide. This was the first competency that was listed on the clarification guide, was using word recognition and vocabulary, word meaning skills, and strategies to communicate. So let's say, just as an example, we decided we were going to use this objective right here. The student locates print and interprets the message, meaning, common symbols, signage, and environmental print. So what we're saying here is that the kid can look at common symbols and signage, and they're able to somehow communicate that they know what that environmental signage means. So there are all kinds of accommodations you can use in that. The first set, and all of this is in the teacher resource guide, I just pulled it out so you could see it separately. When we look at timing accommodations, example of that would be if they completed the task in a single day or across a series of days, scheduling rest breaks, giving the assessment at a time of the day that works best for the student, or the opportunity to cease testing if the test administrator feels the student can no longer meaningfully complete the activity. So on any of the objectives that you list, you could list a timing accommodation. You've got to, across your 6 objectives, you've got to do at least one timing accommodation. The next set are setting accommodations. So for instance, in a familiar room, or in a small group, or individually, or with a familiar teacher, or at home, in a study carrel, with special lighting, seated at a specialized table, using magnets or tape to secure their materials. These are setting accommodations. You're going to have to do at least one of those. Then you have presentation accommodations, and this is accommodations in the way that the student is presented the information. So like using braille or large print or magnifying or auditory trainers or cueing strategies or highlighting keywords, memory facts, charts, resources. You have to do 2 of these over your 6 objectives. They need to be different ones, so you can't use the same one twice. Response accommodations. This has to do with how they give you their response. They can do it orally. They can dictate to a scribe. They can be recorded for translations to a WAV or an MP3 file. They can use a Braille recorder. Again, you have to do 2 of these across your 6 objectives. You can't use the same one twice. Then you've got prompts, and we've done quite a bit of this last week. And so the 2 kinds of prompts, you have direct prompts and you have indirect prompts. And so you can use direct verbal, direct gestural, direct model, physical prompts, or you can use indirect verbal or indirect gestural or indirect model, and so on. And in the guide, it gives both sets of information there. And then we have supports for different content. So support for reading, the student reads by following along with the text, with symbols, with objects, with tactile cues. And then we have supports for reading that can include adapted grade level text, like shortened text, chunked information, large font. And then we have supports for writing, like using stamped markers, using pictures or objects, completing closed sentences or graphic organizers, allowing dictation, or using assistive technology. So here's how it works. The example in yellow is what the teacher guide gave you. So they said, okay, competency 1, a rote count from memory from 0 to 10. And here's how they made it specific to this child. The student points to the numbers in order using flashcards. The supports they were giving were large print flashcards and real objects. And then their data collection, their baseline, where they collected information before instruction, was in October. Their collection was November through February. Their final collection was in March, and they used videotape. So an example I gave of how yours might look is our objective: a student locates, print, and interprets the message meaning, common symbols, signage, and environmental print, copied straight from the clarification guide. Then here's how we made it specific to this child. The student states names of fast food restaurants when shown the sign: McDonald's, Burger King, or Wendy's. So that's specific to a child living in Cleveland. And then the setting accommodations, we're going to do that. If you remember, Lisa is very shy, so she's going to do this with a familiar teacher. The support for the reading is we're going to give her a picture with a prompt. And then the direct prompt we're going to use is look at the picture. We're going to do the baseline in October. We're going to collect November through January. You notice I'm not using as much time to collect because this is a much more concrete activity. My final is going to be March because that's when we do state testing. And then my observation is going to be videotaped. Then the form you have to fill out for me, here's how that would look. Objective 1, I just copied that objective that I wrote in. The student states name of fast food restaurant when shown a sign, McDonald's, Burger King, or Wendy's. And the accommodations I used a setting accommodation with familiar teacher. I used a support for reading, picture with prompt, and I used a direct prompt look at picture. So what that means that you have left to do is you have left to do somewhere in your other 6 objectives. You're going to have to do a timing accommodation, 2 presentation accommodations, 2 response accommodations, another reading support, actually 2 more reading supports, 2 writing supports, and an indirect prompt. And so as you do each objective, when you do objective 2, you're just going to put it here, and then you're going to put which of the accommodations or supports you do, so that when this is over, when you've done it all, then somewhere across here there should be a setting accommodation. That one's done. Somewhere across here there should be a timing accommodation. Somewhere across here there should be a presentation accommodation, and so on. So you're not going to have for every objective something all the way down the column, but each row there needs to be something in each one of these rows.